Hello, beautiful writers. Have you ever felt trapped by your pre-writing rituals? I know sometimes I do. But as writers, we are very picky on how we want to feel good in the moment when we're writing. So, what I want to show you is some of my pre-writing rituals that make me feel good when I'm writing a book. As you see, I tend to like to sit in a very nice, comfortable chair. This is my papu-san. Behind me are all of my books. And I tend to have anything that I like. Sometimes I'll have a blanket, a few pillows, have my mug normally. Something that gives me something warm to drink out of. I also have my favorite pen, as you can tell. This is my dip pen. And it's a dragon, if anyone's interested. And then I have a book, whichever one that I want to write. This one today is actually about a pirate who becomes a Grim Reaper. And he has to sail the seven seas trying to protect a god from the other Grim Reapers. It's really great. But let's be honest. Ideas are a dime a dozen. I have plenty of ideas. They tend to come to me in dreams. They tend to come to me when I'm riding a bus. They tend to come to me when I'm at a cafe talking to other people. People like you, dear writers. Sometimes I can be in a crowd and all of a sudden I get an idea. What would happen to the world if the sky became iridescent? How would we as a society behave if we started raining gumdrops or lemon drops? You know how the old song went. These kind of ideas percolate for a while until I start going, what characters would I utilize? What magic system might I have? These things, it makes me want to go to my local bookstore, believe it or not, and try to find a book where I put all of my ideas in. Speaking of, I think it's going to be a great idea to actually show you some of the books that I use. This is actually an idea type book, and this book holds ideas specifically for a book that I have with that I had shopped around and had gotten my first agent with. This book has been put on hold for a bit, but when I started out, I couldn't afford anything really. I bought college and widebound spiral notebooks from dollar stores, from Walmarts, from any place that I could pick up the cheapest type of books I could get. And that's the thing, you don't have to have very big fancy books. As long as you've got something to put your ideas and your thoughts down, that's really what you need. You don't need to have anything fancy. Please just start with something like this, because this is all that matters, is getting your ideas down. When it comes to looking at books, the first thing that's going to get my attention is the cover, like this one. Now, this cover is probably going to go for something kind of fantasy-like, because it's got a fantasy vibe to it. And as you can see inside, it's got a little bit of a decal, little nice things that make you feel very fantasy. But it does not have a story in it yet. This one actually belonged to a series about a unicorn detective that was trying to find all the missing horns of his relatives that were destroyed and tried to give them a proper burial. But at this moment, that book's been put on hold, so these guys just don't have a home yet. We also have this book. This is actually a recycle book. It's got very nice paper. And I like to use these type of books for like olden type books. I really enjoy the feel of the paper, and this is a very nice book to draw with too. And This is another fantasy type book that I'll probably use. I put this one out in particular because, as you can see, not all of the books that I get or anyone needs to get needs to be very expensive. I like to look for deals a lot. This book is actually a vampire book. It is about a vampire who subsists on the blood of other vampires to hunt them down when they're being in trouble. He's kind of a vampire police. And he teams up with a couple of hunters for a big crime that's happening. And he wants to find out about the crime. Both the vampire hunters and the vampire council are very interested in what's going on. Most of you recognize this book from the beginning, my first video, because I show this picture the most, but it also showcases a lot of the calligraphy that I do. I've been doing a lot of calligraphy more and more these days because I prefer the calligraphy. This picture is not finished yet, but this is how they all start out, is I start them out with pencil first and then just kind of go from there. And as you can see, this is actually purple, and it comes from the Purple Rain ink that I got. I was testing this ink out. As you can see, that is its color. And that's another thing, is don't ever be afraid of making little marks here and there, because honestly, it happened to all books, always. Every handwritten book had its smudges and its problems. I think it gives the book character, really. So that is that book. This is actually a planning book. I do sometimes plan my series. I am normally a pantser. I normally like to find a book and run with it, because for me, it makes the story come alive when I am just putting ink to paper. But this one I actually, because it's an epic fantasy with a hard magic system, I decided I needed to have a little bit more structure to it. The book is called Memory of a Thousand Nothings. It is about a man who lost his memories and was made a slave, and he escapes to find out who put him there. And as you can see, I've written down the magic rule system. I've done some coinage. I've also done hierarchy, caste system, and some of the things that are within the caste system. I also made a map at the back of it. And if you're wondering why it looks like leaves, it's because I did leaves in a pond. That is what made me decide to do this type of map. I actually enjoy it myself. So this is a planning book. These are the actual books themselves. Now, as you can tell, they are each of the same book, because I want my series to match so that I know this book is for a particular series. I do that so I don't get my series confused. And I've actually done 300 pages of this book so far. It is an epic fantasy, so it's going to take a very long time for me to finish. And there's a mix of calligraphy as well as just my regular handwriting in here. And that's because sometimes I just don't feel like doing my calligraphy. This book doesn't have any pictures. I haven't actually done any images in it, but the planning book does. I think I actually showed you some. Like, I do symbols. These symbols all mean something. But I try to make my series either represent a theme or they are the exact same book. And that just makes things easier for me to find the book on the shelf. So the next one I wanted to show, this one's actually one of my more expensive books, so I really like this one. I actually did a very, I was doing a lot of calligraphy to make this look a certain way. Now, this book is called Empty Duty. It is basically a Harry Dresden meets Burn notice, and I was using Runic Viking, and that's why this spells out empty duty. As long as I did it correctly, if anyone knows the old runes, you can give me a holler and let me know if I've done it wrong. I'm fine with admitting that, because this is just research that I have done through reading about Vikings and mythology and how they did their alphabet system. Well, in this book, I have a shaman who was investigating the murder of his wife, and upon doing so, he got kicked out and sent to the mortal world, and is now trying to figure out where to go from there. He wants to get back. He wants to be able to reconnect with his wife's ghost so that he can find her killer. And that is what this book is all about. As you can tell, I really enjoy writing about detectives, mystery, and murder. Very into the dark. On to a series that I have spoken about a lot. This is the Mystic Emporium series. The Mystic Emporium is about this boy who hires some Tuatha De Danann, or old fallen god / fae, to save his father from being held as a prisoner with goblins underneath Baltimore City. That's just book 1. The entire series is about the boy traveling with these Tuatha De Danann to save mankind from fairy tales gone wrong, and they do it through a traveling antiques shop called the Mystic Emporium. And as you can tell, I chose books that were more of a fantasy theme, because I like to, when I pick up these books, I like to feel like I'm going to go somewhere. I'm going on a big trip. It's wonderful. I'm going to be all excited. And it kind of shows you the different handwritings I use. And this one's actually one of my favorite books here, because, again, peacocks, and also the fact that it has the nice imagery on the side. It's a very nice book, and as you can tell, I've tried to do some calligraphy with it, and some of it I haven't. I do have a tendency to change my ink, because I will use whatever ink I have at hand. I'm not too picky about that. I even have a gold and a red ink somewhere around here. This one, another peacock book, believe it or not, is actually a sci-fi book. And it's my gothic space opera, but this is all about aliens. And this is regular handwriting. It just looks nicer. I don't always do the big calligraphy thing. This book is called Near Life Experience. This is about a Grim Reaper that has become a life coach. She was bored with her job and decided she wanted to be a life coach. Fun fact, it is one of the very few books that I actually have a female protagonist. I tend to actually enjoy writing in male perspective. And as you can tell, I do NaNoWriMo also by hand. This is one of those pages that shows that that's the word count I had ended on that day. I also wanted to show you some of what I write with. This is my favorite pen. It is a very nice dragon pen. This is an ancient oak that was actually taken from England. Well, given. And it's about 1,000-year-old oak. One of my pens, I don't have the pen with me, but I can at least show you that one of my pens actually has several tips. And each tip has a different thickness, and it shows different lines. And this is a very nice way to learn calligraphy too. is to have a pen that you can do multiple tips on it. This one only has one tip, but it's fine with me. I have Jade Noir, which is a green-black type of color. It looks very pretty. It makes me think of emerald, except for a little darker. Purple Rain, which you saw in one of my books that I showed. This is a nice kind of reddish purple, so I enjoy that. This is blue-black ink from Monteverde. Actually, they're all Monteverde except for this one. This one kind of comes out gray. It's gray-black. Think of ravens. It's very nice. And this one is just a regular black calligraphy ink. The other pre-ritual thing that I will do at times is I will use a tarot deck. The tarot deck I use for my characters as well as my plots. What it does is it helps answer questions for me, as well as how my characters might react in certain situations. So if I have any questions, I can ask the tarot deck, and normally it helps me out. And that's if I want to ask it. Once I'm done writing, I put everything up there on the computer. Real quick, I'm going to show you. This is Acheron Parthenopaeus. You guys were asking about him. I need you to stay back, buddy. This is my Maine Coon, and he really wants to get into the picture. I love you, buddy, but I'm trying to film right now. He's very curious. He will actually sit on my lap when I'm writing, or he'll lay on the paper. That's why I'm trying to get him to stay away. No. Back. And that is how I do my routine. I'm glad you guys were able to join me as I stay here in this beautiful place with all of my books, writing, enjoying myself, having a bit of coffee. Being a writer can be so wonderful sometimes. So, why don't you do me a favor? Like, comment, subscribe. I would enjoy knowing what your pre-writing rituals would be, and maybe some of your stories. We could start a conversation. Down below in the description is going to be my links to my Patreon, to my Facebook, to my Instagram, to my Twitter. Basically, anywhere that you want to try to get a hold of me. Thank you very much, beautiful writers, and enjoy your writing.